What's going on, guys? I've got another piece of gear to show off today. This is the Blackstar HT Stage 100. This is the Mark III version of their amp, and we're gonna see what it's all about. I've got this for a couple of weeks on loan from the guys at Zzounds Music. They were kind enough to send it to me to let me play around with it here in the studio and also take it to the stage. We've got a couple of shows that we've played, and this amp has been sitting there behind me making some serious racket, and I'm gonna talk to you guys about what I think about it, what I like, what I don't like, some things that I think could be improved, and just my general thoughts and opinions. I've got the Schecter, and with the Alpha Omega set from Seymour Duncan, it's going into the Splawn cabinet. I have the JHS Klon here in front of the amp, and I have the DelVerb in the loop of the amp. And I'm going to start off by showing the reverb on the amp, and then I'm going to transition over to the DelVerb to show you guys what it sounds like with that. And yeah, let's just go ahead and get started here. This is a 3-channel amp. This is the clean channel. This is what it sounds like. Alright, let's have a little reverb in there. Now it's got two different reverb modes. There's a dark mode and a light mode. I think one is more of a hall reverb and one is more of a big room reverb, so we're going to hear both of those. Okay, I'm going to switch to the other reverb mode, see what it sounds like. All right, the amp reverb's off. Let's take a listen to the DelVerb. All right, now I've got the DelVerb on a big hall setting. Now this is a massive, massive reverb sound, but I just want to use it to highlight how great this clean channel on this amp is. I'm really impressed with the clean channel. It's got headroom for days. It's big, it's fat, it's chimey. It's got all the sounds that you would need for a clean sound from a rock amplifier. And I think that with this big reverb that I've got going on here, it can make some really cool noises. Little analog delay mix in with it. Sounds good. Sounds awesome right there. I would never use that kind of sound on stage, but a lot of players might. So it's cool that the clean channel can really bring out the best in that type of sound. All right, this is a rock and roll amp, so let's try out channel 2 and see what that sounds like. I'll turn the reverb down a little bit there. All right, Klon. Alright, Klon is off. So, both of the drive channels have two different voices. The clean has a voice setting too, but it just scoops it out in a way that I don't particularly like. We'll give you a sample here. This is with it how I like it, and this is with the voice light disengaged. Re-engaged. So yeah, turning that back on just really gives it a lot of heft and weight and fullness that I really like out of a clean sound. So let's go back to the Drive 1 channel. Now, Drive 1 and Drive 2 are not the same. Drive 1 has less gain, Drive 2 has more, and each of these voice switches will toggle between what I would like to say is a vintage versus a modern voicing. With the light off, it's a vintage voice. With the light on, it's more of a modern voice, a scooped, higher gain, tighter structure. It really shifts the sound in a cool way. So let's hear, I'm gonna raise the gain up a little bit so you can hear kind of where its limits are on the Drive 1 mode in the vintage setting, and then I'll change over to the modern setting and you'll hear what that sounds like. So it's still clean, even with the gain all the way up. It's still a clean structure with a lot of great note separation and definition. So let's hit it with a boost and see what happens. I've never done this. Still kept his composure. It was a lot of gain, way more than what I would use on a setting like that. But let's go ahead and back it down to around between 9 and 10 o'clock And let's change the voice. So this is the modern voice. And just for reference, this is the vintage voice again. So more gain, a little tighter of a low end, more top end, and scooped out in the mids. Kind of what you would expect going from something considered a vintage voice to a modern voice. Back the reverb down a little bit more, and let's boost that now. Sounds really good. All right, let's go to Overdrive 2 and check that out. Overdrive 1 in the classic mode to Overdrive 2 in the more modern mode. All right, so let's check out how much gain we can get out of Overdrive 2 on the modern voice. You can hear when I went from one voice to the other, back to the classic voice, you can hear how it softened up, but it also fattened up in a really, to my ears, a really good way. Back the gain down a little bit here, and we're going to boost it. So this is unboosted. go to Overdrive 1 again, and we're going to go to the modern voicing, and we're going to hear it boosted. So this is very similar to the settings for Overdrive 2, but this is Overdrive 1, which has less gain overall. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the controls on the amp besides what you've seen so far. You've got the Overdrive EQ controls, so both drive channels, they share an EQ here, and they also share this ISF control, and essentially it's your contour switch, if you're familiar with contour controls, where it sweeps from more of a mid-range focus to more of a scoop sound. You've got your reverb control, you've got your master presence, resonance, and your master volume. The presence and resonance, very usable, really good spot in terms of where they actually are EQing the sound. And the ISF control, it's not a huge difference in terms of, like, some amps, if you got your contour control, it'll make like radical changes to the sound. But this one, again, it's not big changes, but it's big enough that you can kind of really fine tune exactly where you want your voicing to be. So I'm going to go back to channel 1, and we're going to hear, actually let's go to channel 2, and we're going to hear what it sounds like when I mess with this ISF control. So all the way down, it's rolled off some of the top end and fattened up the low end and the mid-range. So that's the ISF control. Now, a suggestion that I would have to Blackstar in case they're watching this, give each drive channel an ISF control. I think that there is just a little bit of compromise that you have to do in terms of getting both drive channels to sound just right. And again, also with the master presence and depth, they can make huge changes to the sound, but I feel like getting one of these two channels dialed in really, really great and having the other one being okay but not as great, that's kind of where I'm at with this. This amp also has another really awesome trick up its sleeve. It has a USB-C port on the back of it, and it can connect to your computer and to their software. And their software has a really awesome cabinet building component to it where you can pick from any type of cabinet that they have in their 212, 112, 412, big ones, small ones, little ones, and then you have like the 10-inch speaker versions, and you can mix and match all these different settings to really create your own custom impulse response or virtual cabinet. And you can store it to one of 3 slots on the back of this amp, and there's a 3-way toggle switch that lets you pick which one of your presets you want to use. And I think that is awesome. And it can also be used to record direct out into your computer or into your interface. Another cool thing is you don't need a load box for this. It can operate just direct out and internally handles the load without any issues. So if you do want to go silent on stage with this or direct into like maybe an FR behind you or just straight to the house, you can do that with this without having to also bring along a load box. So again, I think that's really awesome. And you also, if you got your sound exactly how you want it in the software with the virtual cabinets, then you also wouldn't need to worry about an impulse response box or something like the 2-Note Captor X, where it's also doing resistance and is in addition to the cabinet simulation. So awesome tricks, and in my opinion, as someone who does a lot of gigging without a cabinet on stage, I think that that's a really big value add on not having to also have to purchase a load box if you're just getting into this and you don't have anything, or you're wanting to transition from modeling into something like this. 100-watt mode, 10-watt mode. It didn't really lose a whole lot of that top end, and what I also think is cool is it's still usable. Now, what I mean by that is you can still gig with this at 10 watts and it still gets loud. Right now, it's a little bit louder than conversation volume, but if we crank this thing up, that's loud. That's a loud amp right there. And if you're wanting to have a little bit more of a flexibility with this volume knob to really fine tune a stage sound, I think that the 10-watt mode is still very, very viable. And yeah, you don't have to run this thing cranked wide open at 100 watts. I mean, it sounds great when you do, but so yeah, 10-watt mode, totally usable, and it's the first time that I've played an amp that goes from such a high wattage to such a low wattage without losing its usefulness. And by that I mean most amps where you have the variable wattage where you can go from really high to really low, the low one is extremely low, like bedroom late at night conversation low, and that's about where it limits it to, even if you're cranking the volume up. With this, you're dropping the volume in the output, but you can still raise the volume back up and have a huge range of flexibility and fine-tuning with that volume output to where you can still bring it up to a manageable stage volume. Like maybe not the loudest stage volume, but a usable stage volume, especially if you're already going to be miking the cabinet and not really focusing primarily on beating the audience up with your stage sound, but more of just getting a good sounding signal that you can feed to the PA to be your primary source for your output. but you still want to have it loud enough that you can hear it, and you know, if you got a loud drummer, you can still hear over the drummer. And I feel like the 10 watt mode on this amp really exceeds my expectations with what I thought it was going to be. So again, great points there. Okay, so where does this thing land in the ecosystem of other amplifiers in its price range? Now, depending on what your price range is, you can be sliding up to $1,500 back down to maybe like $800 or so. And I think that for a 3-channel amp, great clean sound, great classic rock crunch, nice tight high gain sounds, reverb, no load box needed to be running DI out. You got the cabinet building simulation, the software you can build your own cab sim, the impulse responses. There's really nothing on the market that has this kind of feature set at this price point. And I feel like Blackstar have a pretty good product on their hands. And for me, it's my first Blackstar amp that I've plugged into, and I'm liking what I'm hearing. Now, I will say that I struggled with it a little bit initially, and the reason for that was that I was trying to dial in a sound that the amp really doesn't have in it. And by that I mean kind of more of that classic Marshall sound. That's the sound that I love and that I just naturally gravitate to. And trying to dial in a amp that really wasn't voiced to be a Marshall or a Marshall type sound, it kind of frustrated me a little bit. And so I took a step back and instead focused on dialing in sounds that really enhance what it already sounds like, rather than trying to make it, like trying to force it to sound like something that it doesn't sound like, if that makes any sense. And once I did that, I really started to enjoy the amp, and I really started to see the benefits and all the great sounds that it does have to offer. So, what did it do on stage? The post-gig report. It sounded awesome, and I have no complaints whatsoever. I didn't dial in the mega high gain sounds out of this thing. Our set list just really doesn't call for that. So I had it a good high gain 80s, 90s rock sound, and when I needed more, I just hit it with a boost, and that was that. I did use a cabinet. I used the Port City 212 cabinet, and it's got a pair of scumbag speakers, and it sounds incredible. And yeah, just had a really good time with this thing on stage. No problems whatsoever. Sounded great. Big fat cleans were just great. The low gain stuff did great for our classic rock stuff, and you know, for the high gain 90s and 2000s rock, no problems there. It just handled everything really well. So yeah, no complaints. Sounded awesome on stage. Sounds awesome here in the studio. Sounds great through the aux stomp box, just going straight DI out. And even though I haven't messed with any of the software for the configuration, there are a couple of other videos out there that show off kind of what that's about and what that sounds like. But for me, I'm wanting to focus on amp cabinet because that's how I gigged with it, and I think it sounds awesome. So, if you are interested in checking this thing out, I will have an affiliate link down in the description where you can go and buy it and show a little love to my channel. If you're not subscribed, it'd be appreciated if you hit that subscribe button for more of these cool videos. I've got a lot more on the way from these guys to try out. So yeah, stay tuned. This was a fun product, and yeah, I really liked it. All right, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.